As dawn broke, Ellis, a seasoned fisherman, pulled up his nets and found himself staring at an unexpected squirming mass among the day's catch. Amidst the glistening fish, a strange creature was entangled, unlike anything he'd seen before in his years at sea. With a mixture of awe and concern, he sped toward the shore, the creature's faint movements urging him on. When the local marine experts saw what he'd brought in, their astonishment was palpable. But before we start our story, smash the like button. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. "What the?" he mumbled as he guided the net onto the boat. His eyes grew wide in shock as he realized there was something in his net that didn't belong there. "Ben, come to the deck, please, ASAP," he said through his walkie-talkie to his captain. "What's up?" his captain asked skeptically. "Not one of those lobsters you're scared of again, huh?" Ellis couldn't hide his smile. "That was one time, and that fucker bit my finger," he defended himself. All right. Give me a second," Captain Ben said, and Ellis heard him messing around with the steering wheel. A little later, he saw Ben walking down the steps and in his direction, but as soon as he got a glimpse of the net, he stopped cold. "What the fuck is that, El?" Ben said. Ellis shrugged his shoulders. "I wanted to ask you the same, but I don't want to remove the net." The two of them stood frozen on deck, staring at the net. Suddenly, Ellis thought he saw something moving. "Oh no, he said as he shook his head. "I don't get paid enough for this." Ben punched him on the shoulder. "Get your shit together, man. Let's call the police. They'll know what to do," he said as he began to walk back to his wheelhouse. Ellis never took his eyes off the net and tried to make out what kind of creature they had captured. It was covered in seaweed and flapping fish, so it was hard to see. Suddenly, something clicked, and Ellis knew there was not enough time to wait for the police. "Rush to shore!" he yelled as he ran up the steps and burst through the door into the wheelhouse. They were almost at the marina, and Captain Ben ordered Ellis to go down to be ready for docking, but Ellis was almost too scared to be even a few meters close to the net. "Don't be such a wuss," Captain Ben snapped at him. He could be such a jerk sometimes. Taking a deep breath, Ellis walked down the steps, but never took his eyes off the net. He saw the marina in the distance, and as soon as he was close enough to the dock, he jumped on to attach the rope. As he rushed to get everything done, he noticed that the net had caught the attention of his fellow fishermen, and they were slowly gathering around to stare at it. Captain Ben came out of the wheelhouse, waving his hands in the air. "Nothing to see here!" But that only made things worse. Now even more people noticed the crowd forming, and various gasps were heard among them. "What is that?" Ellis said, as he tried to push some of the people away from the boat, but that was not a good idea. Curiosity turned to agitation as people jostled for a better look, their feet edging closer to the dock's edge. From the deck of a rusty trawler nearby, an old sailor with a weather-beaten face caught the crowd's attention. "Ever heard of the sirens of the deep?" he called out, his voice carrying over the noise. The crowd fell slightly quieter, drawn to his tales of mythical creatures that roamed beneath the waves, luring sailors to their doom. The old sailors' stories captivated the crowd, their faces lit by a mix of fear and fascination under the early morning sun. Amidst the swell of voices, Ellis and Ben exchanged a tense look. They both knew things were quickly spiraling beyond their control. As the sirens blared, a Coast Guard cutter sliced through the water, pulling up sharply beside the dock. Their arrival snapped every head around, silencing the crowd as officers stepped onto the shore. Quickly and efficiently, the Coast Guard officers began to set up a perimeter. Their firm voices cut through the buzz of the crowd. "Please step back for your safety." This action brought a temporary order as people shuffled back, murmurs of curiosity and concern rising among them. Officers moved through the crowd, their presence calming yet assertive. "We'll resolve this quicker with your cooperation," one officer announced, her voice clear and commanding. Another officer handed out small flyers with safety information, ensuring everyone felt involved and informed. This gesture seemed to reassure the crowd, their anxious whispers softening as they watched the unfolding scene. Ellis watched from the side, his emotions a mix of relief and anxiety as he observed the Coast Guard's methodical approach. He wiped his hands on his jacket, trying to appear calm as he followed their movements. Every now and then, he would exchange a glance with Ben, who was also trying to keep busy by straightening up some equipment on the deck. As the officers neared the boat, Ellis braced himself, his eyes darting from the officers to the net. He shuffled his feet, rearranging a coiled rope absent-mindedly, trying to prepare for whatever might be revealed. Maybe this day can still turn around, he thought, glancing up as the crowd leaned in, the tension palpable in the salty sea air. As the authorities neared the boat, the mysterious net began to wriggle again, more vigorously this time. Ellis stepped back, his eyes locked on the shifting mass. The officers paused, their hands resting on their belts, watching the net's movements with a mix of caution and intrigue. The crowd's murmuring increased, everyone craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the commotion. Ellis's hands hovered over the net, his fingers itching to cut it loose. The Coast Guard officers were preoccupied, and the crowd's attention was on Ben's animated conversation. Gripping the knife, Ellis hesitated, torn between curiosity and the urge to act. The net shifted, and a distinct shape pressed against the netting. "Did you see that?" someone whispered. The crowd leaned forward, their faces a mixture of fear and fascination. Speculations ran wild. Ben snapped his phone shut and raised his hands for attention. "Experts are on their way, just hold steady." His gaze met Ellis's, urging calm. The crowd, though restless, settled slightly as they waited. Two marine biologists approached with gear in hand, the crowd parting to let them through. Dressed in waterproof jackets, they nodded to Ellis and Ben before beginning their work, carefully peeling away layers of seaweed and fish. With each layer removed, a glimpse of the mysterious figure beneath emerged, sparking whispers among the onlookers. Ellis and Ben stood nearby, their concern palpable. They exchanged quick, nervous glances, but mostly kept their focus on the unfolding scene. The biologists moved with precision, using soft brushes and tools, their concentration evident as they worked in silence. The crowd held its breath, eyes fixed on the biologist's every move. Then, a fierce storm blew in, scattering the onlookers. The sky darkened, and the marina was thrown into chaos as waves crashed against the dock. Ellis urged the biologists to hurry, shouting over the howling wind. The biologists nodded, working faster, but the storm made their task increasingly difficult as rain and wind battered them. The crowd, though thinned, pressed closer, umbrellas tilting against the storm as they strained to see the examination. Ellis's worry deepened, his heart racing as the net flapped violently in the wind, threatening to tear free. He gripped the railing tightly, soaked and anxious. Visibility dropped sharply as the storm intensified, adding to the mystery of the scene. In the midst of the chaos, a swatch of fabric became visible in the net, fluttering eerily in the wind. The crowd murmured, speculating about its origins. The biologists discussed the fabric aloud. Could this be something intentionally hidden, one asked? Their words fueled further curiosity among the crowd, whose imaginations ran wild. Ellis, soaked and shivering, felt a growing dread. As he watched the fabric flutter, he couldn't shake the feeling that this find might be grim. The fabric shifted with the wind, making it difficult to identify, but the biologists remained focused, determined to untangle it carefully. Speculation grew wilder among the onlookers. "What if it's treasure?" someone yelled, igniting a new wave of guesses. As the storm finally subsided, the media descended upon the marina. News vans and reporters flooded the scene, transforming the event into a spectacle. The mystery was no longer just for the crowd, it was now a headline. Ellis and Ben quickly coordinated with the police to manage the crowd and media. Temporary barriers were set up, directing foot traffic to keep the area clear. The police spoke firmly to both the press and onlookers, ensuring the biologists had enough space to continue their work. Ben, seeing Ellis's discomfort, intervened, shouting at the media to back off. Back off! Let us work! His commanding voice caught the reporters off guard, and for a moment the clicking of cameras slowed. The media reluctantly backed off, shifting their focus to the boat and the still-covered net, keeping their distance as they continued filming. With the media at bay, the biologists worked with renewed urgency. They removed the last pieces of debris, their movements precise, as they prepared to unveil the long-hidden mystery. Anticipation built, both among the crowd at the marina and the viewers at home. Each small movement was met with gasps and whispers. Finally, the biologists cleared enough to reveal a highly realistic mannequin dressed in a faded pirate costume. Laughter mixed with sighs of relief and disappointment rippled through the crowd. Some chuckled, relieved the mystery had been solved, though others were slightly let down by the anticlimax. Ellis felt a mix of embarrassment and relief. The sea monster was nothing more than a movie prop, but the frenzy it had caused left him sheepish. He shrugged at the biologists, acknowledging the dramatic build-up to such a mundane conclusion. As the crowd processed the anticlimax, the biologists explained that the mannequin was likely part of an abandoned film set. The event, though disappointing, quickly became a humorous local legend. People began recounting their initial reactions, each retelling more exaggerated than the last. "Remember the day we thought we caught a sea monster?" became the punchline of the day, ensuring the story would be retold with laughter for years to come. With the mystery resolved, the crowd gradually dispersed, leaving the marina quieter than it had been all morning. Ellis and Ben leaned against the boat's rail, reflecting on the surreal day. "Can you believe it was just a mannequin?" Ben chuckled and Ellis grinned, relieved but amused. The marina slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Boats rocked gently and seagulls circled above the water. Fishermen prepared for their next outings, the morning's excitement now just another story in the life of the marina. Ellis decided to keep the mannequin, turning it into the boat's new mascot. "I think I'll call him Captain Jack," he mused, securing the mannequin at the bow. The mannequin, dressed in pirate garb, now proudly overlooked the waters, a quirky addition to the crew. Stories of the sea monster began circulating, much to everyone's amusement, and at the local diner, fishermen reenacted Ellis's initial shock, their hands dramatically covering their mouths. The room filled with laughter as each retelling added more flair to the story.